Coming up on FaceTime.
You know, I had the Porsche, the Cayman S in college. So the Cayman S.
That was back in college. How did you
college.
get a Porsche as a college student?
I had favorable lease terms, and I was working a fair amount here, so I earned a wage.
So you loved the car so much that you decided to work harder so that you can afford this car, right?
Exactly. The correlation between effort and reward is very strong.
Yeah.
And so if you want nicer things, generally in our family, it means you need to work harder.
Hello everyone, welcome to FaceTime. I'm your host, Helena Shi. Today we have a very special guest with us in New York, Donahue Peebles III. He's the son of real estate mogul Donahue Peebles Jr. and the development executive at the Peebles Corporation. He's also a recent graduate from Columbia University and a friend of mine since freshman year. I'm very excited to catch up with him and see what he has been up to. Selfie time.
As a 23-year-old recent graduate from Columbia University, Donahue Peebles III handles acquisitions and development for the Peebles Corporation, the largest African-American-owned real estate development and ownership company in the U.S. His father, Donahue Peebles Jr., is the founder, chairman, and CEO of the Peebles Corporation. He's recognized as one of the most successful real estate entrepreneurs in the U.S. In May 2009, Forbes listed Peebles in the top 10 of the wealthiest Black Americans. Although Don was born into a privileged family, Don's father insisted Don develop a strong work ethic. While Don enjoys many creature comforts, these were afforded through the wages he earned in his father's office and as a basketball coach.
Hi Don.
Hey Helena, how are you?
Good. We're very honored to have you here today.
Oh please, the honor's all mine. It's so great to see what you've done since college, and I can't wait to share with you and some of your viewers what we've got going on as well over here at TPC, we call it.
See, I'm very excited to hear about your stories. Could you tell us more about what was it like growing up with a father that's so successful?
That's a really great question, and it's such a incredible opportunity, and I'm so grateful to have been blessed with a family that's been so successful, not only in business, but also, through philanthropy. My father and my mother, both, board members of the New York Mission Society. My father continues to be outspoken about political issues that help some of the poorest among us. And I think what resonates most with me and my family is that success is a wonderful thing to strive for, but changing the world and changing the communities in which we live in and do business in is more important. And so, as a consequence, right, what we see is my family and my mother and father setting such a wonderful example where I'm able to follow in their footsteps and create these wonderful, vibrant communities. But growing up, they're big shoes to fill. And in a lot of ways that's exciting and daunting. But you're given such a wonderful opportunity that it's a shame to waste it.
I remember when we were at Columbia, I rarely saw you on campus. You were super busy. You were working at the People's Corp while being a student at Columbia at the same time.
I was doing a little bit more too, which was exciting.
What were you doing?
So of course I was in school, and school was my priority. Wink. But,
Sure.
But I was also working here. So my father had mandatory work hours where I would work in essence full time.
Wow.
At the company, and I was at the time leading the development of Fifth and I, which is an SLS hotel in Washington D.C. It's actually a great project. There's a 175-key hotel. We're doing 50,000 saleable square feet of condos above it. It's a public-private land disposition, so we're actually buying the land from the city and turning it into a hotel. Something I started working on when I was 18, and I'm still working on now at 23. But I was doing, other stuff as well. I was actually coaching at my alma mater. I coached the middle school basketball team for 2 years at Columbia Prep. And so there was a lot of running around. I got really familiar with the most expedient ways to get from here to Columbia Prep to Columbia University. And maybe I didn't have as much time to study as I would have liked.
You didn't have much time to hang out with friends, obviously.
Oh, I thought I saw you a fair amount.
A few times.
Yeah,
Sure. How many hours did you have to work?
Oh, goodness. I probably was in the office about 30 hours a week,
Wow.
30 to 35. And then coaching basketball took up another 10. So together, they were, like a full-time job in New York where you work about 45 to 50 hours a week. And then, of course, Columbia took up the majority of my weekends.
Graduating from Columbia.
Yeah, this is me at the academic awards ceremony, actually.
Nice, you got an academic award?
See, and you wouldn't have thought I did.
Oh, nice.
I won the John Wayne Curtis Award, which is the oldest award in
How
Columbia.
did you get the public speaking award?
By speaking publicly well. No, I'm serious.
I'm sure it's a legit award.
No, it is, right?
It is.
We can Google, you know what? You don't even believe I'm telling you.
Academic award, seriously?
Yeah.
So going back to, I guess you trying to balance your roles, between a student and, your work here and then coaching basketball, how did you manage your time?
I like to say well, but that's not always the case. A lot of times the first thing to go was a good night's sleep, and I would, work here. I'd go to practice, I'd go to class, and I'd stay up late to finish whatever assignment needed to get concluded. And I probably wouldn't sleep as much as I should have. With that in mind, I think it was a great preparation tool. Because as you get more prominent and you take on more responsibility in the business world, time management, becomes of paramount importance. And the mistakes I made in college with regard to time management, I don't make now. And the stakes and responsibilities are so much greater that I'm grateful for being stretched so thin for so many years that now I'm able to use the skills I learned there to focus on one thing and dedicate essentially all of my time to that one thing.
And that one thing is real estate.
Exactly.
You got involved in real estate at a very young age.
Very young.
Could you tell us how you got started?
Sure. So it is a family business, and it was a much smaller family business when I was younger. And so I was in the office, perhaps starting as early as about 10 years old. Before that, when you learn your basic math, your addition and subtraction, carrying the numbers, etc. I learned that on P&Ls. And when I learned what a cap rate was, it was the same day I learned how to do long division. So my dad would give me the building NOI, and he'd give me the cap rate, and I'd divide the cap rate into the building NOI to find the building value. So I have these old pieces of paper with these real estate word problems, and I did them in crayon. My handwriting's terrible. I got the math wrong, and my mom would have to correct, like, no, you bring down this number now. It's really cute. And it was a gradual, workload in the business, and it just, to me, it seemed fun at the beginning. And then 13 and 14, I wanted to learn, I wanted to understand what was going on in the meetings that I was sitting in. And so I would sit in there and I would write down every word I didn't understand. Then afterwards, I'd go around to my dad and the different executives and I'd say, listen, can you explain this to me? What does this mean?
Back then, did you know that real estate is something that you want to do in the future?
When you're young, you're not as self-evaluative.
Yeah.
You're not as introspective as you are when you're older. And so when I was 10, it was just, this is what I'm doing. I'm learning, I'm learning long division. When I'm 13, it's like, well, I'm coming with my dad to work. I might as well understand what's being said in this meeting. And so to me, whether it's nature or nurture, I'm not sure, but I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else.
I know you work really hard, and you just told us that, while at Columbia, you work 30 hours here. Like working so hard, do you have any free time?
Of course, everyone has free
What
time.
do you do during your free time?
I mean, a lot of it I spend sleeping. I also love to work out, and I love to eat at nice restaurants. It's a guilty pleasure. It's gluttonous, I know, but I love a good steak. I usually get up early in the mornings, especially at my apartment now. There's a nice rooftop deck, so I'll make breakfast. I'll take it up the elevator to the rooftop deck. I'll eat breakfast outside, get to the gym. I'm in the gym by about 6:30. I work out for about an hour, and then get ready to go to work. And the morning time is my time, to relax and for myself.
That's a very disciplined lifestyle.
It isn't if you like getting up early and you hate staying up late, and I happen to be one of those people, so it just aligns more with what I'm looking to do.
As your friend, I know that you love cars, right?
I do love cars. I do love cars.
Do you have a Maserati now?
Still looking at the Maserati.
Oh,
I know I'm vacillating between the Maserati. You know, I had the Porsche, the Cayman S in college. So the Cayman S.
That was back in college. How did you get a
college.
Porsche as a college student?
I had favorable lease terms, and you know, I was working a fair amount here, so I earned a wage, and that was definitely very, very helpful. I definitely didn't buy the car.
So you used your wage, you know,
Exactly.
working
here to pay for the car.
Nice. So do you have to afford everything yourself?
Exactly, and that's how it's been for a little while, which is why I took on that second job as a basketball coach. I did have car payments to make, and I bought leased a luxury automobile, and I needed to make sure I made those on time.
That's very impressive.
Oh, you know, I really love the car. I love the car so much, I'm telling you. So it was a 6-speed. It was a manual transmission, and all the cars that I've had have been manual transmissions. I had a 2001 911 before the Cayman S, which was also a 6-speed, a little bit from what I had in the past.
So you love the car so much that you decided to work harder so that you can afford those cars, right?
Exactly. You know, the correlation between effort and reward is very strong, and so if you want nicer things, generally in our family, it means you need to work harder. We're gonna pan fry this actually. I'm making pan fried chicken. How about not gonna bread it? So it'll be.
I don't know how to cook chicken.
Do you not?
I don't. It's a good learning experience for watching.
Yeah. I don't like it when that happens.
Because that's just plastic.
While growing up in his father's company, filing papers in grade school and attending meetings as early as 13, Don officially joined the team in high school as an intern. Throughout his years at the company, he has been the driving force behind the many projects such as the redevelopment of a DC parcel into a hotel.
I think my influence in broad strokes has been the shift to focus on affordable housing and a reestablishment of the company in Washington, D.C., which is where we were founded, which is our home market. I lead the day-to-day development of all of the assets in D.C. We have about 4 projects there currently. Most of my day, you know, is I get into work reasonably early.
What
time? Of course, about 8:45.
Oh, wow.
I catch up on emails. And then generally it's calls and meetings throughout the day with different sort of stakeholders and attorneys, progressing the projects forward incrementally. And then once or twice a week, I go down to DC, I meet with folks down there, our development team members. We have local partners for most of our projects who are on the ground.
What are some of the challenges that you faced when navigating the workplace?
You know, one of the more interesting ones is, so I've been doing this for quite a long time at this point, but I'm very young. And unfortunately, not only am I young, but I also look very young.
You too.
And so...
Do people mistaking you as a high school kid?
I hope not high
college
school.
Student.
I hope college student, because they're not far off. But you know, a lot of times it's dealing in spaces where folks, you know, are 10, 20, 30 years older than you even, and making sure that you know, to a certain extent, that they understand that you're very, very serious. And then that responsibility falls on me. You know, it's about dressing conservatively. It's about comporting myself in a way that garners respect from these folks. And the great part, you know, about my upbringing, and we touched on this earlier with the ethics and morals, is that comporting yourself with respect, acting as though you're someone who deserves respect, and treating others with respect, garners you respect. And so that has been the most essential skill for me in navigating the workplace and navigating what's a highly contentious and highly personal business at a young age.
You mentioned that, you know, like navigating the workplace, and obviously your father has been very successful, but how do you plan to build your own legacy?
You know, I always get caught up in this necessity or this narrative that necessitates some sort of differentiation between the father and the son. You know, where they say, well, how are you going to make your own way? You know, candidly, I have an incredible opportunity to honor my father, to honor my family, to perpetuate and continue our legacy. I think there are small tweaks that we can make. I think there are ways for the business to grow and evolve. But in no way am I looking to differentiate myself from what my father's done. In fact, I want to embrace it. I want to continue it. I want to perpetuate it. And I hope that my children feel the same way about what I've accomplished. The building should always grow and change. And great businesses are the most malleable businesses. They do what they do well, and they grow and learn to do more well, right? Adaptability is essential, but it's not my adaptability, it's ours. And I think that where a lot of second generation folks or third generation folks get muddled up, it's about differentiating themselves, about creating something of their own. And that's, in my mind, a uniquely American perspective. Because to me, the greatest honor is to continue to build something great for my family, for a collective that's greater than myself. This is me in China. This is me.
Did my friend take the picture?
No.
Oh,
This is
okay.
my mom took this.
Your mom?
Your friend took this picture.
Oh, that's a nice
Me in
picture.
Shanghai. Yeah. This is me in the hotel at the Mandarin Oriental. This is me at this old water town. This is me at the top of the peak in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong, yeah.
Chinese buyers are very interested in real estate investments and have been important players in the global real estate market. They invested a record $33 billion in commercial and residential property last year, according to research. What are the differences between American and Chinese investors? What factors should be taken into account when making a real estate investment? And what does Don think of Guangdong's real estate market?
There are many different types of real estate assets, but just like there are many different types of investors. And so knowing your risk tolerance is perhaps some of the best advice I can give them. Are you a core plus investor or are you a value add investor? Are you looking at purchasing distressed properties in high yield areas, or are you looking for a safe place to park your money and get some sort of yield that you're not necessarily getting in equities or in financial institutions? So to me, it's about matching the asset class to the investor. It's like going to a shoe store. You want to make sure you get a shoe that fits. Otherwise, it'll be pretty, but you'll take it home and you won't like it because you can't wear it.
So I guess the first step is to know, what asset class you are willing to invest in. And then let's move on to the second step. What are some of the metrics or factors that they should pay attention to when making a decision?
Absolutely. So for income-producing assets, what you want to look at is, or my favorite metric to look at. Now, folks look at deals differently, but I'll look at something called a yield on cost, which is your NOI over the total cost of the project. And what that does is it incentivizes you to develop if there's a spread between your yield on cost and your market cap rate.
You've been on business trips to China before. What do you think are the differences between U.S. and Chinese real estate markets?
I think the U.S. investor is generally more risk averse. I think they're less accustomed to seeing such big swings in cycles. Outside of Miami, of course, South Florida is an animal all its own. I think that the Chinese real estate investor is more retail. Their risk tolerance is much higher. They build for such a rapidly growing economy that it's almost like Babylon. If you build it, they will come. And in the United States, growth is much more stagnant. Take Guangdong, for instance, the fastest growing luxury retail market or luxury residential market in the world at something like 30% annually. In New York City, we get 10, 15% year over year growth. That's something to throw a party at that will never happen again. Whereas Guangdong, you see it consistently year after year. When I was in China, I went to the Real Deal conference in Shanghai, and I met with some folks from Country Garden. Now, Country Garden, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Based in Guangdong.
Based in Guangdong, one of the largest real estate developers in China.
Indeed.
$58 billion portfolio, depending on the exchange rate. And that's nothing to sneer at. What they do, which is incredible, which you don't see in the States very often, is large master plan sites. So they build cities around industrial centers. Now, generally, United States manufacturing, despite maintaining a similar share of world economic industrial output, is declining with regard to labor year over year. China's is growing, and so your industry over there is a big job generator and commensurately a big wealth generator, and so it's driving that real estate market to a certain extent and creating millionaires and billionaires overnight.